Hey, how's it going, you guys? I have a rather heavy topic for you guys today. Um, as you guys have probably seen throughout a lot of my videos in the past, I have my little cat that walks around. His name is Boy. And unfortunately, the other night, along with my girlfriend, we had to put him down. He was 16 years old, and, he was an old cat, but us, loving him, it kind of you look at the 10% of the health, the good times, and you kind of outlook the other 90% of the aspects of his life that might not, look so great. Because he had definitely gotten a lot skinnier. His belly had started to sag, which we found out later was due to a hernia. So basically his insides were starting to sit against his skin, which can cause complications, especially if the organs get twisted or anything like that. And he had begun for the last couple months walking around and howling at night, which they said is basically a form of cat dementia called like sundowner syndrome. But he was just expressing his confusion, and we had just came back from camping, and we weren't ready for it. The cat was over at her mom's, and we had to go pick him up, and we brought him back, and he quickly started, getting worse as we had him here, and we realized that it was probably going to happen that night, and so we didn't even get another night with him, and this comes on the eve of my girlfriend having a big job interview the next day, and she's also in a wedding this week, and so kind of everything all happened at once, and it was really stressful for me because I run the trivia at one of the breweries that I work at, and usually she comes and helps me out with that, so I had to do that alone, knowing that afterwards I had to go put my cat down, and knowing that she was at home alone with him, which I wanted her to spend time with him. And so we ended up going to the vet and asked them a bunch of questions, making sure we were making the right decision and not jumping the gun or anything, but they kind of put our minds at ease, basically saying that if we were to not do it that night, that it's only going to go downhill, and basically that we would just be prolonging it because we don't want to do what needs to be done. So we made the decision to do it, and I've never put down a pet before, and it was really fucking hard. I held him while they administered the barbiturate, and it was about as peaceful as you could possibly imagine a death being. He literally laid down like he was just getting sleepy, and then he was gone. And I bawled my eyes out along with my girlfriend. I mean, that was probably the hardest part to watch because she had him for all 16 years, and we've been together a little over 9 and a half years. So I've had him for that long, but it was very surreal. The point being that I'm saying all of this is that it was a very hard experience for me, and I think for a lot of people, especially in my position as an alcoholic, you're trying to find a way to justify allowing yourself to digress, to go back to your old habits, your old coping mechanisms. And in that moment, I feel like someone who might be newer in their sobriety might say, fuck this, no, I can't do this, I can't handle this, I need a drink, And I think that's the alcoholic mindset, trying to, use any excuse to have that drink, which, if you really think about it, is really sad and disrespectful to a lot of especially if it's a person or even a pet that passes, to use that as an excuse to, enact the worst qualities about yourself, because chances are the person that passed wouldn't want you using them passing as an excuse for you to revert back to your alcoholic ways, and I certainly know I wouldn't want someone using my death for that. The idea, though, is that you need to learn how to, that life will do this. Life will hand you these really hard fucking situations like death, and my cat's death is a microcosm for when my parents pass, or close friends, because those things happen. It's just a part of life, and you have to be mentally prepared, knowing that that's going to happen. And sometimes, like, with my cat, it was like we knew he was old, but we didn't think it was happening when we came back from camping. We had all these other plans, and that's life. Sometimes you just have to learn how to adapt on the fly. And when you prove to yourself that you can do that, you then realize that you can do it for harder and harder ones, and stronger ones, or at least much more difficult experiences in the future. And a huge part of sobriety is not running anymore, and not lying, and not avoiding life. It's about dealing with life. So as it happens, you have to embrace it full front and deal with it, right? You have to work through the emotions. Sometimes those emotions are grief and sorrow and anger and depression, but you have to sit with them and figure out why you're feeling this, and allow yourself, especially if it's something like grief and sadness, you need to allow that to happen. You can't suppress that, because suppressing it is not working through it. You can't just say, I'm not going to deal with this, I'm not going to deal with this, because then it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. It's like if you had a pimple that, you just kept pushing under and under and under the skin. It's not going away. You're just allowing it to fester and grow, and just allow bacteria to build up in there. You need to just get it out, It's kind of a gross analogy, I'm sorry. But, I waited a couple days to make this video because I wanted to be able to work through some of that grief. I didn't want to, sit here and cry on the video and, try to tug at heartstrings. I want to get the message across that you need to know that when these things happen, that you're not just going to use them as an excuse to fall back on your old ways, because what will happen is it will just compound negatively. That you're like, okay, now I've slipped up and I've drank, and this person or my animal or this thing is gone, or this has still happened. So now not only is reality still there, I am just worse off with reality. I haven't done anything in the positive. The other, a huge part of the reason why I roped in talking about everything that happened with my girlfriend is that she had a lot of things happen all at once. And it can seem unfair, and I'm sure relatively it is unfair. It's not that you did anything to deserve that. It just happens. That's how life is, And when you learn to deal with things that are not, optimal or ideal for your situation, you become stronger, because you then know that, I remember that time that I dealt with all that and I was able to get through that. It makes you stronger. Because you work through that, you become a person that can work through that, because you have. So, death is just a part of life, and you can't allow your mind to try to find excuses to go backwards, and it was really hard. And granted, I'm at this point in my sobriety where I don't ever think of, using alcohol. It's such a concrete fact fused into my mind that I know it'll never, it's just not for me. It just won't ever help me, but it was very surreal. In the large ways, I still think I'm going to see him around the apartment, and I know, logically, I know he's not here. But in my heart, I still want to see him and call out to him, especially because it happened very fast. I came back from camping, we got ready to go host trivia, and then boom, before you know it, I'm in the vet with him, and we're like, what just happened? How the fuck did that just happen? But I think just not only being able to look ahead and kind of have a little bit of foresight into saying hey, not every day is going to be super easy. There's going to be really hard days, and knowing that you have to sit with that and embrace shit that is hard sometimes, because it makes you stronger. Things that are hard to deal with are hard to deal with, but they need to be dealt with. They're not impossible. They're just hard. Just because something is hard doesn't mean that you should avoid it. It just means that it's more difficult. But it makes you stronger. It's like weightlifting. It's heavy. That shit is heavy to pick up, but the more you pick it up, the better you get at it, and then the heavier things you need to pick up, because it gets lighter. You get better at it. There was the other thing I was going to say is that what helps me a lot of the times going through these things, I tell people not to compare yourselves to other people's lives, because even a rich person can be severely depressed, and you might have a much more rich life than someone who has billions of dollars, so focusing on your own life and your own path is, generally the best way to live your life, and not get, bogged down by the perceived lives of other people around you. But one thing I do like to use is the idea that no matter what situation you're in, there has been someone that has been in a far worse situation. You could say, like, you lost your cat that week, and then you were fired, and then someone stole your car, and you couldn't afford your rent, and you've been kicked out of your place. Okay? I'm sure all of those things have happened to someone, and they lost their children potentially, or they were in a car accident themselves and lost their legs. Like, the point being is that your situation could always be worse, and you should be happy that it's only as bad as it is. And I know that can kind of seem pessimistic, but I really don't mean it to be. I mean it to say, like, okay, you have this shitty hand that was dealt to you. Now, how do you deal with it? Start pushing forward and make yourself learn that you're capable of dealing with these hard situations. And yeah, I guess kind of to reiterate, because you deal with them, you become the kind of person that can deal with them, It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anyway, I think that's predominantly what I wanted to talk about on this video, on death, on negative experiences, and kind of trying to, like, prepare yourself to understand how to deal with them, and just that life is going to happen, and don't allow yourself to justify an excuse to fall back into your old ways. Anyway, you guys, please like, share, subscribe, offer my channel to anyone that you think it would help. Follow me on Instagram, Celtic Jumper, and I'll see you guys next time, and hopefully I have a little kitten by then or something. Anyway, as always, you guys, stay sober.